In the second part of Gayle King's exclusive conversation with 4 people who lost loved ones to mass shootings, the family members talk about the role of forgiveness, about being part of a group linked together by tragedy, and about the impact of sudden loss.
Your life is ordinary and everything is in place, and then in a moment, your world changes.
I live in El Paso, which has been named one of the safest cities. All I know is that my dad went and took my daughter shopping for clothes, and the next minute he was gone.
You feel like you're in a state of shock?
I think it would be called shock.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it was a fog and you couldn't see clear, but you learn to navigate day by day. One day might be a good day, another day, I don't want to get out the bed. And
still?
Yes, still 4 years later. I can't call my mom and ask her, how do you cook gumbo? To go to Charleston now is very difficult for me.
She mentioned like picking up the phone. There's times I still pick up my phone ready to call my dad, and I can't.
It is not fair to create this permanent underclass of people who have to do this. In addition to, didn't you say you have to go back to work next week?
Yes.
Are you thinking, Stephanie, I have to get back to living my life?
For my daughter, for my kids, you know, she's been through so much.
She was there.
She was there, and I need to show her that the world doesn't stop.
What would you all say to that? She's saying, I have to make life normal again. I have to get back to work.
I would, advice sucks.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I'm going to say. Advice sucks. And I'm answering because Gayle asked me, be gentle with yourself and honor the everyday.
But I do think there's the encouragement of El Paso strong, Dayton strong. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I know it's support, but it's like a reminder that this happened. It's a reminder every day.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it felt somewhat comforting. Oh, they haven't forgotten. But I think eventually people do move on and the bumper stickers fade. It is really, really wonderful to cheer El Paso strong or Sandy Hook strong, but it is even more helpful to us if that came with a commitment to lift us up forever, because we're not just grieving year one. I will grieve Anna until the day I die.
Where are you all on the issue of forgiveness for the shooter?
My sister was the first one to say, I forgive you, on the TV, and I started screaming and hollering like, 48 hours and you're talking about forgiveness? It took me almost a year, even being a reverend.
So you have forgiven?
I have now.
Why?
In order to get all of that anger and rage, I had to get to a point in understanding what I really believed in my faith and to be able to be free.
Where are you, Richard? Do you think you're capable of forgiving him?
No.
No, but where are you on forgiveness?
I just don't understand why it's a narrative we quickly go to after shootings. I'm glad you're asking the question because now other people can learn. I saw it in Newtown. All of a sudden the forgiveness families were in one bucket, and those were the wise families, and then the ones who were like, no, why should I have to forgive them, were seen as another. And they were asking that of Sandy Hook families 24 hours later, 48 hours later. And I'm like, wait, when did this become my responsibility to absolve the person and to absolve it? Because I feel like it's another way to let folks off the hook.
I listened to a woman talking about her experience in Las Vegas. I'm a veteran. I served during the Vietnam era. And when this woman was talking to me about the experience of what it was like to be there at that concert in Las Vegas, it reminded me of simulated combat.
We were given the option of visiting the classroom. And one of the questions I asked was, where's the toilet? And the answer to that was, we removed anything that had been destroyed by gun violence. So if an industrial toilet was destroyed by the firepower.
Because you're thinking, imagine what it did to the children.
We cannot, as a nation, say that is okay. Because I didn't sign a 6-year-old up for war. I signed her up for first grade. This is not our kids died because we were negligent. We have to address the injustice that we are visiting on American families. It's like a hell's lottery where if you lose today, you lose today. And that's not okay.
Boy, Chris, boy.
It is a remarkable interview, Gayle King. Thank you for joining us here.
But just think what she said. It's a hell's lottery, and it's a game we're all playing. It's a game we're all playing that at any time, any day, it could happen to any of us. It's a club, I said to them, it's a club nobody wants to join, and yet there they are.
And, you know, they talked about in the first part how there's almost now groupings of these shootings. They become so common that we've got buckets to put them in.
Yes.
You know, and you know, you're hearing a Sandy Hook family. That was the shooting 6 years ago that everybody talked about was going to be the one that finally changed things. And here we are 6 years later. You're talking to somebody who lost a loved one in El Paso earlier
3 weeks
this
ago.
month.
Yeah, I asked Nelba about that, the mother of little Anna Grace, because everybody thought this will be the shooting that will change things. You have these 20 little children from, you know, an affluent suburb in Connecticut, and 6 educators, and the thought, because we all at some point have taken our kids to school, you thought finally now that will change. And Nelba said, so imagine how painful it is for her, 2012 to 2019, to see that nothing really has changed. But they are thinking, many of them are thinking that now for the first time, maybe because it was back-to-back, El Paso and Dayton, that lawmakers and politicians are starting to talk about it in a way that they haven't talked about before. I can't say they're optimistic, but there's a part of them that thinks maybe, just maybe, things will be different. I don't know.
Do they feel a rallying cry, a push now to try to take things across the finish line? If politicians are talking differently, is now the time that they're trying to do something?
They do feel that, but you know what? They've all been doing that since they were affected by this. You know, you have people in Columbine that have still been working on this. So everybody is trying to do something. Somebody who belongs to this horrible club. But it really is up to the people of the United States, the way that we vote, the way we talk to our lawmakers. And why I wanted to do this interview, you know, I started just talking to Nelba, and she said, you know, I think it would be more interesting if you talk to other people who've been through shootings. And she was right about that, so you could see the different perspectives. I don't want us to become desensitized to it. That's why why I wanted to do this story so badly. Because Steve Hartman, as you know, a member of the CBS family, always does what I think are very compelling, you know, heart-tugging, heart pieces.
Heartwarming pieces.
Heartwarming,
usually.
that's the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for. Thank you, Chris Bankley. Very heartwarming pieces. And I saw him do a story after one of the shootings. And the way he described that story, you could have plugged in any shooting. I can't believe it's happened here. We had no idea. The family says this. There's always a hero. There's always somebody who was in the right place at the right time, or somebody who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. And Steve said something that I've never forgotten. He said, we mourn, we pray, we repeat. And what Nelba said about the Hell's Lottery, it is that. All of those people sitting in that room said, it is going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And what is the number count that we have to get before people finally think, now we have to make changes? They also said, and I thought this was interesting too, the reason why they're speaking out is they're hoping that somebody will hear their stories, and maybe when you put a face to it, that you hear it very differently. That's my hope too.
Gayle, at the end of this conversation, when you walked out of that room, what did you walk away with? What has stuck with you?
I walked away with great sadness, and I walked away with great anger. Because when you look, and they all brought up New Zealand after they had the mass shooting in New Zealand, how the politicians there changed the laws in 10 days because they said, we are not a society of people who want to live this way. And I look at this, you know, we're all for people own the Second Amendment rights and you owning your guns and responsible gun owners. But they were saying even the people in the NRA want to have background checks. And they were saying nobody who's not a military officer or a police officer should have the weapons of war. That's why this is so scary and so frustrating.
Well,
but I love talking. I love talking to them, and I love that you could have put a face on every single one of these people and what they're going through.
Nelba made a really powerful point when she said, I signed my daughter up for first grade, not to go to war.
Yes. Her daughter was 6 years old. And, you know, if you look at it now, she has a 16-year-old son. Little Anna Grace should be starting 8th grade this fall. Instead, she died in a classroom, shot several times. You know, I don't know what it is that people don't understand, why we don't do something about this.
Gayle King, thank you very much for joining us.
It's good to see you.
Powerful interview. Always great to see you. Thanks for being here. CBSN will have the full special on the effects of mass shootings in America where you can see a lot more of Gayle's interview. That's tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on CBSN.